There you have the Heath brothers. Percy Heath on bass, of course Percy mostly known for his work with the Modern Jazz Quartet. Jimmy Heath on tenor, Stanley Crowell on piano, and Al or Tootie Heath on drums. That's a track called Long Gravity from the album Brothers and Others. Before that, Christian McBride with Joshua Redman on tenor, Roy Hargrove on trumpet, Steve Turre on trombone, Cyrus Chestnut on piano, and Louis Nash on drums. The track called Splanky from the album Getting To It. And we started off with Benny Goodman with that great quartet that he had with Gene Krupa on drums, Teddy Wilson on piano, and Lionel Hampton on vibes. And I don't know exactly when that recording was done. My guess was in the 40s. Justin, you have any idea? Did you listen to a lot of that Benny Goodman?
I wouldn't be able to tell you what the date is. I listened to quite a bit of it growing up, but I'm not really sure about the date on that.
So, right away I put him on the spot. Don't you love that?
First test.
We are joined in the studio by Justin Ray, and welcome to Maine FM, Jazz Unlimited, Justin.
Thanks, Eddie. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice that you could come by. I know you're busy, and we've got lots to talk about, a lot of exciting things happening in your world and on the music scene here in Asheville. Just to do a little bit of a brief introduction, Justin is a trumpeter, and he plays with a group called Spork, which I go on record is one of my favorite bands here in the Asheville area. I love your experimental approach, always interesting shows that you do. And Justin has played for, how many, 8 years with Michael Bublé?
That's true, yeah, the last 8 years.
Michael Bublé. So you've been touring with him along with Jacob Rodriguez, who's another member of Spork. And we'll talk more about that, and we're going to talk about a CD release party that you've got coming up soon and a lot of other stuff that's going on. But what we're going to do is I ask my guests always to bring music with them into the studio, music that they want to listen to and talk about. And I never know what they're going to bring. It's one of those kind of trust things. I kind of figure you're not going to bring Kenny G.
Yeah, it's a good bet.
Yeah. So anyway, while I get this CD in here, tell us what we're going to hear, Justin.
Well, the first thing I brought was it's from an album called Mingus, Mingus, Mingus. It's the first cut off that, and it's titled fairly cryptically 2BS, but I believe he's recorded it on other albums, and he's called it Haitian Fight Song.
Yeah. So is this a pretty large ensemble that he's got here?
It's a couple different horns, him and a rhythm section. And one of the reasons that I brought it is I feel like it sort of feeds into some of the things we try to do in Spork, which is some of the more collectively improvising kinds of things that we do.
Well, we'll listen to this track, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it after we hear it. Charlie Mingus. Charlie Mingus. And that does sound like the Haitian Fight Song to me.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's got a definite fight song quality.
Yeah. Charlie Mingus, his music is so exciting. It's clearly rooted in the blues and in the church.
Very much so.
And he was one of what people don't talk about, when they talk about the free jazz scene, the progressive jazz scene, you hear people talk about Coltrane, Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor as well. We should. A lot of people don't realize that Mingus was doing stuff years before that I think laid the foundation.
Absolutely. And one of the things I liked about Mingus's concept of that kind of music was that no matter how far out it got, no matter how cacophonous it got, it still really maintained that root we were talking about, the blues, swinging. It always feels really...
Never
really
strayed away, did it?
Yeah, so that's a combination I really appreciate. Is it can get really adventurous, but at the same time it still feels really good. It feels like swinging.
You can feel it. And you can really get your teeth into Charlie Mingus.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. It's always interesting to me the music that musicians choose when they come in here, and I noticed that the trumpet is not a predominant instrument generally in Charlie Mingus's music. You're a trumpeter. Talk about that.
Well, it is. I mean, a lot of his composing style, Mingus's composing style, comes from Ellington. So you hear, like, it's true in Saint Interladied album we were discussing before. You hear, it's almost Duke Ellington's trumpet section that he's bringing in. But certainly in some of his smaller some of his smaller ensembles, he featured the saxophone a bit more prominently.
Yeah. And Eric Dolphy was a prominent member
For a long time.
of Booker Urban. We were talking about off mic. A great tenor player who I don't think he had a long career. He died a little bit young, didn't he?
Booker Irvin?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. So talk about Spork, because you guys are doing a CD release party tomorrow night. Talk about that and about the group. Tell us about that.
Well, that's right. Our CD release party will be tomorrow night, starting at 10 o'clock at Mo Daddy's downtown. I'm not sure. That's on Biltmore.
Yeah, I think it's Biltmore. Yeah, it's down right next to the Mamacitas.
Right next to Mamacitas.
It's the same owner.
Orange Peel. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a group I'm really proud of. It's an unusual instrumentation. It's me playing trumpet. We have Steve Alford, who plays either alto or bass clarinet. Jacob Rodriguez plays tenor and baritone saxophones. Mike Holstein plays acoustic bass, and Ben Bjorley plays the drums.
Mm-hmm. And how long has the group been together?
We've been playing together for almost, I think it'll be 3 years in December.
Okay.
About 2.5 years now.
No piano.
No piano.
Now, was that a conscious decision, or it's just as the musicians came together, there didn't happen to be a pianist, or?
It was a pretty conscious decision on my part when I first thought about putting the band together. Just from I think not having a harmonic instrument frees up the improviser to do a lot of different things, and also from a composing perspective, if there needs to be some kind of like comping or background harmony, I'd rather it be provided by the other horn players, either through a line that the composer writes or something that they just make up on the spot.
And there have been musicians over the decades who have consciously omitted the piano for that reason. Ornette Coleman.
True.
Sonny Rollins did a
Sonny
lot of
Rollins.
recording, and in a very different style of music, but Chet Baker and Jerry Mulligan in
Absolutely.
West Coast jazz usually omitted piano. Do you think they had the same idea? It's like more harmonic freedom?
I think so, and Miles did it sometimes too. I remember reading in Miles' book, he talks about asking Monk not to comp behind him on certain records just because he wanted that kind of harmony. I think it all stems from the same place, just having a certain level of harmonic freedom, and also it's very uncluttered. It's a very like open way of playing and open style of music.
Okay. Well, I want to hear more about Spork and the musicians, but let's play another track. You're grabbing the Dave Douglas.
Dave Douglas, yeah. This is sort of an example of the kind of ensemble. A couple horn players, Dave Douglas playing trumpet and Chris Potter playing tenor saxophone, but there's no piano or guitar on this.
And which track do you...
we can do the first one.
Now, talk a little bit about Dave Douglas for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with him.
Dave Douglas is one of my favorite trumpet players. I think he's kind of been a part of the more avant-garde jazz scene in New York. I think he spent a lot of time playing with John Zorn, and has been a leader of his own groups for the last 15 or 20 years now. But he comes from it's the same kind of thing. He's very while he's very adventurous and is into really stretching the boundaries of music, he also has a really deep root in blues and swing and bebop and things that are really important to me.
Well, and he's become very popular. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, in the last Downbeat poll, he either came in first in both polls, both the critics and the fans poll, or he was right. And there are a lot of great trumpet players out there.
And he's been pretty critically acclaimed for a while now. I think he won talking about that Downbeat poll. I think he won whatever their triple crown is, like trumpet of the year, record of the year.
And he's not a guy that plays it safe.
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay, so on this group we have Dave Douglas on trumpet, Chris Potter, a fine saxophonist on tenor. The bass player is James Jennis, and Ben Porowski on drums. And we're going to hear a track called Caterwaul from his album Leap of Faith. Dave Douglas, Chris Potter, James Jennis, Ben Porowski, Caterwaul. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty adventurous music.
I want to remind our listeners you're listening to Jazz Unlimited, sponsored by 5 Walnut Wine Bar, which has live jazz every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday evenings. here on Main FM, the Mountaineering Information Network, WPVM at 103.5 on your FM dial. And this week, I'm joined in the studio by Justin Ray, a trumpeter who, when he's on the road, when he's away from Asheville, tours with Michael Bublé, and when he's in town, among the various things that he does is he plays with a group called Spork. Spork is a quintet. So it's Ben Biorley on drums, Michael Holstein on bass, Jacob Rodriguez on sax, yourself on trumpet, and then Steve Alford plays bass, clarinet, and alto sax. Talk about each of those musicians and what they bring to the group, Justin.
Well, everything. When I first moved to Asheville, these were some of the first guys that I met and played with and were really impressed by. I mean, for a lot of different reasons. Jacob and I actually were living in New York prior to this and came down and moved down together in, I guess it was the August of 2008. And we met Steve Alford at they used to do a jazz jam session in Trestles every Tuesday. I think that's where we met him. And he really brings that adventurous, forward-thinking musical spirit to the group, I think. He's, first of all, in his choice of instruments. I know for a long time he played alto and tenor saxophone, and then almost entirely gave those up for a while because he wanted to learn to play, and he wanted the clarinet to be his main voice. And so he brings like a real forward-thinking spirit and that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. Jacob and I have been playing it. I mean, Jacob also plays in Bublé's band, and he plays. I don't think there's an Asheville musical project that I'm involved in that I don't play, that Jacob and I aren't involved in together. And he and I just play we just play sort of seamlessly together.
Are you more traditionalists?
You could say so. I think if you were to break down the group along stylistic lines, you might say that Jacob and I are a little more straight ahead, and that Mike Holstein and Steve are a little more adventurous. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of think of Ben as the guy who kind of glues those two together.
He really drives. He's got an energy.
Yeah, he really knows, and he really knows what to do at any given time to push it one direction or pull it another way, and his presence really makes things work out very well.
And of course, those who have spent a lot of time listening to local jazz are very familiar with Mike Holstein.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't just walk the bar.
No, not at all.
He plays against you. I mean, when I say plays against you, I don't mean in a combative sense, but
right.
He really, do you feel like you're having a conversation with him?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's not just playing, four quarter notes all the time. It's definitely more of when you're improvising, it's definitely more of a conversation than it's not it's almost like you're collectively improvising.
So you've got a new CD out.
It'll be printed and ready to go by tomorrow.
And Mo Daddy's down on Biltmore. You're going to get started about 10 o'clock?
About 10 o'clock. I think we'll play until 1 at least, possibly later.
Yeah, it's kind of a late night crowd down there.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing that CD. I've heard you guys live. I've heard the group out at the White Horse. I've heard you over at Bobo's, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of you guys. So, what else did you bring? Let's listen to the next track. Looks like we're going to go with something a little bit more straight ahead.
Yeah, how about a little Cannonball Adderley? Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do number 8. That's one of my favorites off that. One of the things I like about this record is Cannonball Nancy Wilson. One of the things I like about, whenever people ask me for a recommendation about the first jazz album they should buy, I always tell them this one. Because the first half you have Nancy Wilson, who's a beautiful singer, playing with Cannonball's group, which is one of the preeminent bebop, hard bop groups of all time. But then for the last half of the CD, it's that same band without Nancy, so people can kind of transition into bebop slowly, with a singer and then without.
And of course, on trumpet,
Nat Adderley.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Now, is Joe Zawinul on piano on this?
I believe it's Joe Zawinul, Sam Jones, Louis Hayes.
Oh boy, what a great band. Okay, so and Cannonball, what a silky sound, and such a joy in his sound.
So much exuberance.
Yeah. Great descriptive word. Cannonball Adderley with his brother Nat, and that track is called T-Neck from the album Nancy Wilson and Cannonball Adderley. This is Jazz Unlimited. My name's Eddie. I'm joined in the studio by John Ray, and a great example of kind of the classic hard bop sound, which is still around.
It really is.
Still a lot of musicians playing right out of that hard bop tradition. Why has that sound endured so long, whereas, for example, fusion is kind of just had a short life and you don't really hear too much?
I mean, there are definitely people definitely incorporating elements of fusion still, but hard bop really did have a long life. Especially, I mean, I think it sort of came back in the late '80s, early '90s with Wynton Marsalis and Roy Hargrove and a lot of trumpet players that were actually a lot of young musicians that got signed to make records in that era were making records that were very reminiscent of like Cannonball and Art Blakey and those sort of things.
What did you listen to when you were growing up? You were born in Albuquerque?
I'm originally from Albuquerque.
Okay.
And I wasn't really into music much until I was 15 or 16. Before that, I had a trumpet I played in the marching band, but I was just listening to whatever was on the radio. And then I started taking trumpet lessons, and my trumpet teacher just would send me home every week with 2 CDs, like this is Clifford Brown, this is Miles Davis.
Wow.
And the guy that really resonated with me quickly was Lee Morgan.
Oh, yeah.
Was the first guy, because he really, in addition to being a really, wonderful jazz musician, he really kind of explores more of the sonic possibilities of the trumpet, in terms of like, all the things that are possible to do with that, with like half valves and growling and all that kind of stuff. So he was the first guy he was the first guy I definitely emulated as a trumpet player.
Well, and he was so exciting, and of course he had those big CDs, the Sidewinder, and so on, that got a lot of airplay, I think, particularly in the African American communities. And talk about music that's rooted in the soul,
absolutely,
soul sound, or I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but
well, the Sidewinder was so successful that pretty much every Blue Note record recorded after that had to have some kind of Sidewinder copy on it, hoping that they would strike the same kind of gold.
Exactly. That. So you got into jazz when you were a teenager, and I actually did a little bit of homework. I Googled you. I use technology, and so let's see here.
What did you discover?
Well, it says here you went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. A lot of musicians are doing that. Why would you do that? Why not just hang out and play in the clubs and hang around? Just go to New York and slum it.
I mean, that's. I feel like music school today is what touring bands were 50 years ago. I mean, that was where. I mean, I had good teachers at Berklee, but I think more valuable was my exposure to the student community there, where you see your peer group. You show up, and I was from Albuquerque playing trumpet, and I was, and I thought I was pretty good at it. And then I showed up as a 19-year-old kid at Berklee, and I was, and then you kind of get an understanding of where the bar actually is.
Okay. And then you went on, got a master's degree at the University of SoCal in L.A.
Yep. That's the truth.
And you played with a number of musicians. Certainly Kurt Elling and Joe LaBarber are names that I recognize.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a really good time to be in L.A. from a music scene perspective.
And when did you get hooked up with Michael Bublé?
I guess that was 2003. Right after he recorded his first album, he came to LA to do a week at a club there, and he auditioned a few guys, and one of the guys he auditioned was a guy named Alan Chang, who ended up being his musical director, and basically just a bunch of friends of mine that ended up getting the job, and then they asked these people for recommendations, and I was the one that ended up getting the call.
Well, and Michael Bublé, 2 Grammys, he sold over 35 million albums.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the thing I love about Michael Bublé is he makes no qualms about the fact that he's basically a modern-day Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Yeah. He even sings. He takes on those songs, "Come Fly With Me."
Absolutely.
I mean, that takes some nads. I mean, you're going to go out and sing "I Got You Under My Skin," "Come Fly With Me." You've got to really be able to step up and do it. Get it done.
He's got the chops.
And he does it.
Yeah, he can.
He does it. And I got to tell you, I was Google, YouTube, so YouTube, "Come Fly With Me."
Uh-huh.
And this happened today. And so I'm listening to this live recording that he's doing, and all of a sudden there's this trumpet riff, and the camera flashes up, and it was only like 2 bars. But there was you sitting up on the top, riffing out on "Come Fly with Me."
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, I know him. That was great. All right, well, we're going to do what I do with each guest as they come in. Is I do a little blindfold test, which is basically, I'm going to play a track. I'm going to tell you when it was recorded, and that's it. And if you know who it is, great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm mostly interested in hearing what your thoughts are about this particular recording. So this was done in 1955.
Okay.
It's a standard, and the trumpet player is the lead person on this album. So let's check this out.
Okay.
Well, we weren't even 1 bar into that track. A big smile came across Justin's face. Didn't take you long to recognize that sound. What was it about that? And tell us who we were listening to, and what was it about it that was the tip-off?
Yeah, Clifford Brown with strings, and it's just Clifford's sound, mostly, on the trumpet. And that's, I mean, and I'm extremely, extremely familiar with that, with that recording. I've listened to that, dozens of times. But yeah, just his, mostly for me, just his tone on the trumpet is the first thing, and the way he articulates the way he articulates his notes is so. I hate to use a word like perfect, but it is. They're all just like these, perfect little statements.
It's remarkable, and this was done in 1955, so it wasn't done too long before he died. And we have people who listen to this show who are very, very familiar with jazz, and we have some who are just, I know people that say, Eddie, I like your show, I don't know that much about jazz. So talk a little bit about Clifford, his life, and what happened to him, and tell the story you were sharing off air.
Well, Clifford, I think he's originally from Delaware, and he went to college for math, which is endlessly entertaining to me. He went to college and got a math degree, and then just kind of showed up and was this unbelievable trumpet player. Started playing with Art Blakey, and then formed his own group with Max Roach, and they were pretty successful.
Played with Sonny Rollins
in that group as well. The story I was telling before, I heard from a trumpet player friend of mine in Boston named Jason Palmer. He was talking to LaRue Brown, who's Clifford's widow, and she was telling him that at some point in their marriage, Clifford really wanted to have children. So she made him a deal that if Clifford made a record of classical music, they could start having kids then. And that record you just heard was The Compromise. He did an album of standards with strings.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful record.
Well, it's so amazing. And then, as the story goes, he was on his way to a gig on the Pennsylvania Turnpike with Richie Powell, who was Bud Powell's younger brother, and apparently Richie's wife. And they went off the road, and all three...
Yeah. It was a rainstorm, the weather was bad.
Yeah, all three perished. And Clifford, I think he was 25 years old.
I think that's right.
So we don't have an enormous output of music from Clifford, but what we have is truly remarkable.
Really amazing.
And the irony was, of course, that Clifford was such a clean-living guy, and there were guys all around him, heavy into all kinds of narcotics, and Clifford was the one,
was the one that died young.
That died so young. Others did too, but Clifford Brown, amazing. I'm going to do another track now. This one was recorded a little bit later, not much later, 1958. And, of course, that song that we heard was What's New, which is a classic. And here's another classic song called September Song. And maybe you're probably already narrowed it down to a couple of trumpet players just knowing that, because you know the repertoire. You listen to these guys over and over. So let's check out this one. And that is Chet Baker, as you noticed, as you ascertained very quickly in that recording, September Song. Did you and you said earlier, I think off air, that you'd listened to quite a bit of Chet as well?
A bit of Chet, yeah.
Now, do you ever transpose their solos and their solos, that kind of stuff?
That was sort of the beginning. That's sort of the beginning stages of improvising for me, was learning how to play other people's solos. And I think transcribed a lot of Lee Morgan, obviously, some Clifford, and then just trying to figure out. And then from there, you kind of like absorb the vocabulary and make things your own, and you end up sounding more like you than other people.
Yeah. How long did it take before you really had your own voice?
Well, I think I'm still working on that, but I think that's just a lifelong path, you know.
Okay. But if somebody came to me and said, "All right, Justin Ray, who does he sound like? What should I tell him?"
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's a good question.
I've heard you play, and you've got a really beautiful full tone.
Thank you.
I'd have to listen to some more, and it's not like that important. It's not like we have to put you in a box and say you sound like a certain person. But
2 cups Lee Morgan, 1 cup Freddie.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Stir twice and serve with ice.
Almost all of my main influences come out of that hard bop school, and that lineage of trumpet that to me was sort of defined by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Because you look at the trumpet chair in that band, it goes, Clifford Brown, Kenny Dorham, Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard,
and then Wynton Marsalis.
Yeah. So
I think Donald Byrd. Did Donald Byrd do some stuff?
Donald Byrd was in that band too.
Yeah.
Just pretty much everyone that all of my main influences were at one time or another in that band.
So time machine, you could step back and play with any band, walk into a club, and they'd say, "Justin, bring your horn." Who would it be?
Oh, that's really difficult. I think it would have to be one of Blakey's bands, just because of my real reverence for that music. But it's hard. It's hard not to say that. It's hard to pick that over Miles' band from either of the quintets or Coltrane, or the list is sort of endless.
Yeah, somebody to pick.
I guess on the spot I would have to say Blake.
Well, that's a pretty good choice.
Yeah.
Friends, you're listening to Jazz Unlimited, sponsored by 5 Walnut Wine Bar, with live jazz every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday here on Main FM, the Mountaineering Information Network, WPVM at 103.5 on your FM dial. You can also stream us at main-fm.org. My name's Eddie. We're an hour into 3 hours of jazz here. I'm joined by Justin Ray, who tours with Michael Bublé. You're leaving Monday.
That's right.
Going to do a tour around the country for about a month.
Yep.
And you've toured internationally as well?
Quite a bit, yeah. I've been to Australia 4 or 5 times, Asia a couple times.
Have you been to Japan?
I've never been to Japan. I've flown through Tokyo about 6 times, but always on the way to somewhere else.
They're big jazz fans over there.
I know. It's always one of those things I never understood. I'm not sure why they're not.
Europe? Is he big in Europe?
Does very well in Europe, particularly Italy.
And I believe he's Canadian.
He is.
So you must get some gigs up there.
Yeah, we do okay in Canada.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah. And you also play with Spork. It's a 5-piece band, and tomorrow night at Mo Daddy's, about 10 o'clock or so, you're going to have a CD release party.
We are.
And that's going to be exciting.
It's going to be a two-disc set.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of live recordings over the course of the past few years. And so one of the discs is going to be a lot of live recording that we did at the Rocket Club. And then the second is going to be the one we did at a new place in the River Arts District called the Magnetic Field.
I remember the Rocket Club. I saw the last show ever done.
Wow.
The AJO.
Oh, yeah, right.
Asheville Jazz Orchestra out there at the Rocket Club. May it rest in peace.
Well, Ken Clem, who is the owner of the Rocket Club and is now working at the Magnetic Field, was the recording engineer on both these dates and did a really, really great job. So we're lucky to have this much nicely recorded live material to put out.
Well, and we're really lucky to have you here, Justin. You're a very, very busy guy. You spend a lot of time on tour, and then when you're in town, you're trying to get as much, keep your chops up and play with local musicians. I've heard you over at Barley's.
Yep.
They've got some great stuff.
That's a nice session. Yeah, I'm glad that's picking up.
Thursday nights.
Yeah,
very exciting. I think I heard you over there when they were doing a Monk theme the night you were there.
That's not every Thursday I'm in town. I'm there.
Yeah.
Except for this Thursday when I'll be at Mo Daddy's.
Yeah, you can't clone yourself.
Right, exactly. I wish I could be in all these places at once.
Yeah, me too. What are we going to hear next?
This is a alto saxophonist named Myron Walden, he's kind of around now. He lives in New York and he plays with a couple different bands. Brian Blade's Fellowship might be the most popular one. He's got quite a few of his own records out. This cut is called 3 Up and 4 Down. I believe is the one that I was thinking of.
Myron Walden. All right, let's check it out. Wow, I really like that. I really like that. Myron Walden. I haven't heard of this guy.
It's great.
Yeah. So he's playing tenor. No, he's playing alto. Then Jimmy Green on tenor, Vincent Archer on bass, and E.J. Strickland on drums. And let's see, this was recorded, I got to read the fine print here, 2005. Now, you told me that you've done some work with Myron.
I did a recording with Myron in 2003 that unfortunately will not see the light of day.
Yeah. I heard the tragic story off air. It went into a black hole before it actually hit.
Yeah, it did.
It hit the sails.
The hard drive is probably at a pawn shop in Pasadena somewhere right now.
Well, anyway, so that was a great experience with you. So
He was great.
now he's up in New York.
Yep, he's been on the New York scene for quite a while now.
Wow. Well, every time I turn around, Justin, there's just another musician.
It's true.
That I haven't heard that absolutely wipes me out. And again, we have the format of the pianoless group.
Yep. Same idea. And there are things, they're playing little backgrounds for each other. Some of them are improvised, some of them might be written. But I like the idea of horn players comping for other horn players.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you ever have people come up to you when you're playing and just go, "What are you guys doing? I don't get it."
Sometimes,
Yeah.
And I think there's too much of a people try too hard to understand things that you don't necessarily need to understand to enjoy. I think, like for instance, I'm a fan of. I like a lot of modern abstract paintings. And I don't have any knowledge or history in that. Like I can't tell you why I like one thing and not the other, but I like looking at them. And I feel like, if you don't have to, I don't think you have to be, I don't think you need a music degree or, I don't think you need to do a whole lot of studying to appreciate, some more adventurous kinds of music. I think you just kind of, let it wash over you and like it or don't like it. But
yeah,
I don't think you have to have like a degree to show up and see a band like that.
Well, and I think if the musicians are having a good time, that really helps carry the music. It makes a difference for me.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and you guys, last time I saw you play, you were really into it, and just that enthusiasm alone. I happen to love what you're doing too, but it makes a big difference.
I'm excited to be up there. I'm excited to be playing with those guys, and so hopefully some of that energy is conveyed, be it through music or just attitude.
So when you're on the road with Michael Bublé, does the music ever, honestly, feel a little bit old to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like this song again.
Yeah. It's very much a show. So, it's the same songs in the same order with, many of the same jokes or phrases or whatever to get in from, there are things that he'll say that cue other things happening. So it's very much like a Broadway show almost.
Do you get a chance to take many solos?
I kind of have one little rock star moment at the end of the night, like his very last encore. There's a trumpet solo, and for the last 6 months or so, they've been actually leading me out into the arena crowd and sticking me in the middle, just somewhere under the rafters, and then the spotlight comes up, and it's pretty fun.
Now he likes to walk out in the audience, doesn't he?
He's done a little less of that this tour, but historically and in the past he's been. I guess he is. It's just the difference between, when I started with him, it was 100-seat jazz clubs, and now it's like 50,000-seat arenas. So,
and then you come to come to a club here, and sometimes, honestly, there's just maybe 15, 20 people.
Oh yeah, that's
and you're cool with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I enjoy playing for an audience, and I enjoy it when people come out to hear music. But it's not. I'm not. My self-worth isn't really tied up in that. Like I like making music that I make, regardless of how many people are there.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. I mean, certainly, I know, Thelonious Monk, guys like him, they played in front of. I mean, some of these live recordings, when they clap afterwards.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like there's like 10
people. Yeah, and that always struck me as.
Yeah.
I remember when I was coming out of high school and going to college. I was a big fan of a trumpet player named John Swana, who's up in Philadelphia. And I was driving cross country with my friend to get to school, to get to Boston, and we stopped in Philadelphia specifically to see this guy, John Swana. So I called. I found out he was playing at a club in Philadelphia called Orleans, and I called Orleans a week ahead of time and made reservations, thinking that this was just going to be. Mm-hmm. I got there on the Thursday night to see him, and there was we were the only two people in the club.
Oh, wow.
It was my first introduction to the fact that just because I really liked jazz trumpet players didn't mean that the whole world was like beating down their door.
They hadn't quite caught up yet.
Yeah, not quite.
Well, I'm going to play another track, and this is another one of my little blindfold tests. So
awesome.
Justin doesn't know what I'm going to play. This is a 2011 recording.
Wow. Okay.
This one is hot off the machines, and I'm wondering if I should give you any other clues. I will give you one other clue. That is that this gentleman is from New Orleans.
Okay.
You notice I didn't say New Orleans.
Right. New Orleans.
He's from New Orleans. And it's a trumpet player. And this guy really, he's got some chops. So I'm interested to see how you like this.
Awesome. Wow.
Not bad. Yeah. I think he passed the audition.
Yeah, he can play. He can stay.
That is Erwin Mayfield. And you did pick up on that. You kind of had to go through the little Rolodex of trumpet players.
The New Orleans clue definitely helped.
Yeah. Because we have Nicholas Payton, and then I think that was your next guess, was Erwin Mayfield. Yeah, he's 33 years old, and he's kind of taken on the role of being the cultural ambassador for New Orleans. And he's come out with a book and CD called A Love Letter to New Orleans, and it's a compilation. So, any comments about his style of playing, or anything that it really stands out as a trumpeter?
I mean, it's pretty technically impressive. I mean, I'm wondering, there's the technique called circular breathing, where you kind of keep some air in your cheeks, and so you don't have to stop playing the instrument to take a breath. And I wonder if he was doing some of that, because there's a couple of those lines when I thought, wow.
Yeah, how's he going to get any air?
Yeah, exactly. Breathing through his ears or something like that.
Yeah, wow. So we had a chance to hear some different styles of trumpet. We heard Clifford Brown and Chet Baker and some Dave Douglas, and now Erwin Mayfield. And we still have some more music. Okay. Justin's reaching in his bag and he's pulling out.
There's Art Blakey.
Oh, God, can't go wrong with Art Blakey. Oh, yes. Is this got Lee Morgan on?
No, this is actually Freddie Hubbard.
Oh, Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah.
Not exactly chopped liver.
Yeah, exactly. He's no slouch, that Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah. Any particular track?
This is probably the third, Booze Delight.
Booze Delight.
That's one of the more underrated.
Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. 40 years they played together. Just about 40 years he had the band. This is Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Wayne Shorter on tenor, Curtis Fuller on trombone, Cedar Walton on piano, Jaime Merritt on bass, and of course Art on the traps. And the expression I've heard is he really lit a fire under the band.
Yeah. I heard people talking about, it being like, standing on an earthquake playing with him. It's got so much energy.
And he wasn't a big guy, physically.
No, not at all.
But, wow, what an impact. Yeah, and if anybody had any, you could say created the hard bop sound, I mean, there are other people we that would come into the conversation. Certainly Horace Silver and so on, but Art was really the guy, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and those bands really define all of that.
One after another. So many great recordings, and so many standards like Moanin' and so on. The Bobby Timmons. I think it was a Bobby Timmons.
Bobby Timmons, that's right.
Tune that have just become standard in the jazz vocabulary. Do you have a particular favorite composer that you like?
Wayne Shorter is certainly up near the top, especially for writing for smaller groups, like a Blakey band, like 2 horns, 3 horns. Like the sounds that he got out of only 3 horns are pretty amazing. So that's definitely an inspiration for me. Ellington, obviously, for larger ensemble things.
Sure.
But almost everything. Almost all of my compositions. I mean, they're influenced by different things, but I think at the core of them, they all come from Blakey and that.
So some of the stuff that Spork does, you've written.
Yeah, quite a bit of it.
Quite a bit of it. Talk again about Spork for anyone who's just tuned in. Tell us about what's happening with you guys.
Well, Spork is our jazz quintet with me playing trumpet, Steve Alford on clarinets, Jacob Rodriguez on saxophones, Mike Holstein on acoustic bass, and Ben Bjorley on the drums. And we're going to be releasing our 2-CD set at Mo Daddy's tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. We're really excited about that. We've been doing these live recordings over the course of the past couple of years, and it's really exciting to finally get them out in the world.
And I asked Justin if he had a CD with him tonight, and he said it's still in the process.
It's getting printed right now.
Are you a little nervous that it's...
I'm a little nervous right now.
You'll have a big sigh of relief when you actually have it in your hand.
Exactly. I talked to the guy today who's printing them, and he said, no problem repeating.
And you'll make sure to get a copy here at the studio, so we can play some next week.
That'd be great.
All right, and what else have you got with you that we can play, Justin?
See, I've got a little bit more. Got a little bit of Sonny Rollins.
Sonny Rollins. Sonny's still getting it done. What is he, 80? I think he just turned 80 or 81.
Right. He just had a big 80th birthday
in September. And would you say that Sonny has influenced you? I mean, he's a tenor player. You're a trumpet player. How does that work?
He's probably. I mean, I've done most of my transcribing on trumpet, but he is actually the one saxophone player who I've transcribed because I really just the way he plays rhythms, his rhythmic concept, his feel, his swing. I was really trying to get some of that in my own playing, and seeing how that would translate onto the trumpet.
And we're going to play the third track because the others actually are very, very long. This is a CD called East Broadway Rundown, and this is an Impulse recording done in 1967, which is, interestingly enough, is the same year that Coltrane died. And these are 2 tenor saxophonists who were kind of the 2 titans of that era, who had enormous respect for each other. They were friends. There was a genuine love for each other. They did record together. I think Tenor Madness. That's a recording. I did a whole series, a whole 3 hours on Coltrane last week.
Oh, wow.
And I did play a track from that. In fact, I think I did the title track. And it's interesting because on this recording, the drummer is Elvin Jones, and the bass player is Jimmy Garrison, of course, who were part of the great Coltrane quartet from 62 to about 65 or 66.
That's right.
And the trumpet player is Freddie Hubbard again. Yep. And once again, no piano.
Yep.
So that really frees up these guys.
It does.
In terms of, would you say it mostly harmonically?
I would say mostly harmonically.
Frees them up.
Because then it becomes the horn player making all the decisions about what the harmony is, and much less so than the comping instrument.
Okay. All right, so we're going to hear a track from East Broadway Rundown by Sonny Rollins. This is called We Kiss in a Shadow. That is beautiful. Sonny Rollins. I don't think of him so much for his softer ballad playing.
He really could play a ballad, though.
Boy, couldn't he?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And I hope he's around for a long, long time. He's not showing any signs of slowing
He's not.
down.
He's still doing it.
Yeah, still doing it. Well, Justin informed me he needs to move on. You're doing a gig tonight over at Mope Daddy's.
I am.
Now, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. You're doing the Soul Jam?
I'm doing the Soul Jam tonight.
With the guys from Vertigo?
That's correct.
And I understand that they're going to take the summer off.
They are. That's the word. That's the word on the street.
So, yeah, I've had Sean in here and Preston
cool.
Kate. They came out
nice.
and hung out with us one evening. So, anyway, I want to thank you once again for coming in, Justin. Justin Ray of the group Spork. They're having a CD release party tomorrow night, Thursday night, at Mo Daddy's down on Biltmore. That is a lot of fun. How much is the cover charge?
$5 to get in.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be selling CDs for somewhere, probably 1 for 10 and 2 for 15.
So this is a great opportunity to hear a great local group. They're very exciting, very creative, groundbreaking group here in Asheville. And also, if you ever happen to catch Michael Bublé on tour someplace, you're traveling around Canada or Australia or someplace, look up on the top row.
Yeah. See me there at the back, I'll wave.
The big smile. Absolutely, playing with Michael Bublé. So, anyway, thank you so much again, Justin, for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Eddie. I appreciate it.
You bet. So,